Hello, welcome to episode 133 in this series where I am programming an NES game live on Twitch from scratch. Let's go. Hope everybody is having a good Thursday. I will remember to actually change the streaming view now. And let's get going here. So last time we were doing a bunch of conversion work from the old JavaScript library to the new library. I'm kind of wrapping some of that up. I was able to get quite a bit done, but not as much as needed to be. There's still some work that needs to be done, so we will get that kind of wrapped here and then make sure the data is looking good. So where we're at right now is within the actual map file, we have the ability to define the objects here in the JavaScript code. And we also have the ability to specify something called a type, which tells us if it's a spawn point for enemies or if it's an actual enemy object. And so what I'm doing here is I'm checking to see if that's the right type, and then if it is, we're going to load the appropriate data for that. So in this case, we need to know the properties, and there are four custom properties that we are loading. Actually, there are three that are actually used right now. The fourth one is the new one, which is the sprite versus the entity, because of the change we made splitting everything out. So let's see. So we have the properties, and then what we need to do next is we need to get the actual individual properties and process them, which is what we're going to do here. So each of those is an object within this array. We're checking the existence of the array, and then we're going to loop through each of the properties and put the values where they belong. So yeah. Let's do that. So just like we've been doing with the other pieces here, we're going to iterate through the properties array. And then, let's see. So as we iterate through, we have to check for name, value, and then depending on the name, we set the appropriate thing and the appropriate value. Okay. So that's pretty straightforward. So let's get the string for the name, and that will, first we need to get the property. One thing I didn't do last time while we were working on the code was I didn't do a using for the namespace for Poco Json, so I was typing out this for everything, and it's just cumbersome to have to type that all the time. So I decided to put the namespace in just so that we didn't have to type quite as much as before. Certainly enough typing going on already without it. So get value, it's a string, and the property is name. Right, so we get the name, and then based on the name, I'm going to get the value, which is a little bit different than how we were doing it here, because here we were getting everything as strings, and we need to now check and see what the name of the thing is, and then we can retrieve the value with the appropriate type based on that. So let's do that. If name is equal to count, is it capitalized? It is capitalized. Then where do we put that into? We want to put that into the map object, right? Map object. Map object. It is oindex count is equal to property get value, and count is, I think, an int or a byte. I can't remember. It's a uint8, so we tell it that, and then we get the value. That's lowercase. Okay, good. So that gets that for us. Right, we don't need to do anything else. Once we have the name of the thing. Oh, the only thing we were doing was checking to see if the value exists. I mean, we could kind of do that or not, depending on what we want to do. Here, we'll add yet another to-do. We should do better error handling here. Else if name is equal to, what's the next one? It's delay. Map object, oindex, delay, equal to prop get value. I believe that's also a uint8 value. The one thing that's nice about doing this way with the new code is that it has cleaned up quite a bit of the structure of the code in terms of just making everything a little bit more neat. Alright, so we want to copy the string into that. So string copy entity, the source will be prop get value, standard string, value, C string, max file. I'm pretty sure that that's correct for this guy. Oh, it's, yeah, that's what that is. That's 250. Okay, cool. And then we got to do the same thing for the sprite. And I think that's it for these properties. Okay. We just got to change the property that it's copying into. Alright, so... Oh, I did delay... Did I do count? I did count also, right? Count, delay, entity, sprite. They're just the four. Delay, sprite, entity, count. Yep. And then we have to... What do we do? Okay, so if this is a spawn point... So if type exists, this is a spawn point. Right? Is that the... I'm just checking to make sure. I'm getting rid of the code we've already converted just to make sure. Map object GIDs is equal to map object I GID. Okay, so this happens after this code. We need to fill out the mapping of the GIDs. And then this should be oindex. And then that's the end of that. And then that's good. And then we want to run the quick sort. That's once that's done going. So once we're done iterating through the map objects, we run our quick sort on the map objects. I believe that's the sort the order of appearance of... Yeah, so it sorts by the Y, so the items that are in the map first show up first in the array. So we've sorted that using the quick sort that's provided by the standard library. And then it says object count is equal to, well, we already set that, right? We set object count. Map object count. Doesn't look like we actually do. So let's do that right now. Map object count. I think it's because we don't have the size. Oh, no. Okay, Let me just double check with this code, with the original code. I think it's because we actually count it a little bit differently. Let's see, where do we increment the object count here? Do we? We have our tile layer, we have our object group, which has all of our objects in it. So we set object count to the size of the thing. And we sort, and then we set it to object count. But why did we do that over there? Why were we doing that? Did we change anything where object count gets adjusted? Maybe at some point we did. We loop through, we quick sort, and then we just set it. So your guess is as good as mine as to why we were doing that. Looks like we can just use the straight up count there and go with that. So this is unnecessary too. Objects size. Okay, so that's the size. That's how many we're going to sort. That's that. This was, we were looping through the layer count. I believe we are done with that now, and then we free the loaded JSON code, and then everything else is processing the stuff that we loaded. Let's see, are there any more? I think that might be everything. I think I may have. Okay. Oh, that's just a typo. That does not work. So it's because an array, Pogo array is just a standard, like a vector type thing. So, all right. So that was what I was going to do before when I was working on this, but then it seemed like it was okay, and then I tried this because I don't know. So then, just like that. Except, how do you know? Because it's just an array. How do you know? Get value. Value. Extract. I should probably look up the documentation on that one. Unsigned. Human 8. Let's take a quick look, because I'm not 100% clear on why that worked that way. Poco JSON array. Let's see. So, is it a dynamic array? The other thing is, if we're doing this, we have to iterate. Otherwise, it's not going anywhere. Poco JSON array pointer. So we get the array as an array. Oh, you can just do get 0? But how does it know? How does it know what type it is? Data get. Oh, because it's a. Interesting. Okay, so that's the element that you're indexing into. Result is a var, and then what do? You get, how do I, is empty is blah, 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 convert. Do we use the template function and say uint8 like that? And then I don't need the iterator. That would be ideal, not to have to create that iterator for the purposes of that. Let's see. So if we have gets a dynamic var. Var is sort of, so okay. So that's our, you know, any type essentially. Convert I. Invoke this method to perform a safe conversion. So that would take it. There is a range exception if the value doesn't fit. Oh, okay, yeah. So you tell it what type you want, and then if it can't convert it, it won't. It'll throw an exception instead. It should actually be an int8, not an unsigned int8. Okay, that's not too bad. Has no member size. Well, because it is a function call, it is also being dereferenced incorrectly, so that would do that. Ooh, are we down to the last one? Map cannot convert argument 1 from that thing to that thing. Oh, well, we've got to give it a type. Okay, cool. So now we get to see how catastrophically this fails now that we've ripped out all the code that was there and is new. Now, one of the things I did was I also changed this to run as a 64-bit project because it was not building the 32-bit project properly for Poco. So that was a problem. Also notice I think it's a bug in Visual Studio. It is not happy whenever I change project types in the configuration here. It goes to show nothing, and then after I close and reopen it, it reopens correctly. It's just kind of weird. So, all right, let's go to. Let's just step through this and let's get to a point where we're going to actually load some code here. I mean, I think this should probably work. There's not a whole lot that is being done with the data from the JSON itself. It's more so that it's being read into data structures, and then once it's read into data structures properly, it gets processed that way. So the hope is that all of that stuff gets read in correctly, and we end up with the same data we've been reading previously, but now it's a little bit easier, a little bit neater. Probably not necessarily faster, but I'm okay with that given the trade-offs at this point. Okay, so we get the file. I want to say it's probably going to load the project first, but let's walk down here. I don't need to step through all of this code. The main reason I did that at first was I wanted to make sure that it actually launched the code, and that there wasn't any issue with the library usage. I am using the static library, meaning that it doesn't need a DLL or anything like that. So it shouldn't have had any issue. So here's the export. So we're gonna run until we get to there, and now we're in load project. So this will be the first thing that processes some JSON, which is our project file. So let's take a look and see. We're going to read all our text into the buffer. So we have our buffer, which has all of that content. We have our parser, And it parses it, and what is the problem? Unhandled exception. JSON exception at memory. I assume it's some sort of parsing exception. Call stack. Parse. Unhandled exception. Rethrow at memory location null. Is it just I passed the wrong thing to it? Buffer, parser. So it calls this. And that is that. And then I don't have that code. So why is it getting a null pointer exception? Unhandled exception, blah. Oh, it isn't a null pointer exception. It's just a long... Well, that says 0, but the other addresses are just really long because they're 64-bit addresses. Is there a problem with the JSON? Let's take a look. So... this is the project file. Let's just load it into something like JSONlint, which if you've never used it before is a handy thing. You just throw JSON into it and it will tell you that you have a mistake somewhere. Let's see. Did I copy the whole file? This is the file before I go any further. This is the file in assets, right? Assets shooter. Okay, so there is a problem with the... So it's interesting that it didn't complain about that with the other parser. So... okay, so levels, and then the array, and then that closes off... Wait, really? So that's the layout. That's the end of the array layout. That closes off that, and then that, I suppose, would close off all the things. Let's see, or is there... I guess it's probably... So that's the entities, blah, 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 blah. Levels. Yeah, you know, it does, but I'm not sure. Oh, okay. For the levels itself, you're correct. All right, so that closes off that, and then that closes off. That closes off the object. That closes off the array. That closes off that. Okay. And then to confirm, it looks like that's that. And then the other nice thing it does is it formats the JSON. Thanks, Deedle. All right, cool. So it's interesting though that it didn't complain about that with the other parser. I wonder why. That kind of is a little weird. I guess that parser wasn't as accurate as this one is. Let's add another breakpoint there. Okay, cool. So that was it. So it just didn't like that it wasn't formatted correctly. So now we can free our buffer. That was a little bit of an experiment. I don't know. I was curious to see if that would have any sort of negative impact on the contents of these objects. Doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it's using references back to the original memory, so that's cool. All right, so we'll extract the object. So that object would be our entities, this whole project object. And then we're going to extract sprites, meta tiles, palettes, and levels. And that all looks like it worked as well. So we can now start iterating through. All right, this is looking pretty good, right? Because the sprites, the first one is explode. Did it... I wonder if this actually... if this will escape... if this is... is this the escaped version, or is this the unescaped version? Oh, it's unescaped. Awesome. So that worked too. That was the other thing about the other library, is as much as it was parsing, it was not doing things like escaping double slashes and some of the other escaped characters. So we had to handle that as well. So it's nice that that's working. Cool. So that got the absolute path. It checks the existence. It goes through and it does more stuff. It's got bullet.sprite. Very nice. Okay, so this is seemingly working as it should be, so that's good. And then we can go to our meta tiles, and same deal here. Alright. That's working too. Alright, that's excellent. Let's go to the palettes. So far, I am excited to see that this is working just like I expected it to on the first try. I'm sure there are going to be problems, but not bad for the first pass so far. All right, we have the levels and the layouts, and we're going to go through that and get the layout element and get the map name, and that's map1.json. So then we construct the full map file name, and that's correct. This is excellent. Map project file count. So is that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes. Cool. All right. So that's good news. None of this stuff was affected by change. So let's see. I don't think this was either. Nope. Right, cool. So that's, we can skip over that. And then let's see. So this is processing some of the sprite stuff, and really the next part is the map export. That was substantially changed by this. So we're going to load the map now. We have our parser. We open our file, we read it. So that's in JS code. Okay, good. The parser parsed it, no problem. That was another thing I was concerned about potentially, was that for some reason, some possible issue with the JSON code being generated by tiled not conforming for some reason. I mean, not that I had any reason to specifically expect that, but it was just a concern in general. So we have the tile sets. And they are not 0, and they are not null, so that's good too. Spindle tile count is 3. Let's see. I believe that's correct. Let's see. That's the tile set. Yep, that's 3. Great. Now we're going to iterate through this, and we're going to grab the first GID, which should be 1. It is. And then the source is this, and then we're replacing the forward slashes. How come that's not... How come that doesn't work the way it's supposed to? Alright, well, we've hit our first problem, which is, I thought standard string find return back an iterator that will be npos if it is not found, but it is return. Oh, well, maybe it is. Maybe what I'm seeing is the result of the evaluation. It should be... Is it because of the way I'm doing this? It should be evaluating the result of the assignment. Alright, let's stop right here. We'll set a breakpoint and we'll come back to that. Let's do it a little bit more precisely. So let's see. So source.find is going to return a size t, and so size t lock equals standard string npos. So then if while lock blah doesn't equal, right, that should be what I want it to evaluate. And it should do it just one time. Ah, there we go. Okay. So source, replace. The one other thing I should check. I thought it actually replaces in the string. It does, and it returns a reference to the string, right? Yeah, so it returns this. So that is correct. So it found a forward slash, and it should have replaced it with a backslash. Oh, it did. Okay, cool. So that worked. Great. Well, that was easy. Okay. So now we have the full path, and we're going to copy the C++ string over to the C string to get the absolute path, which we now have. That's exciting. We're going to get the JSON file name. We're going to check for its existence, and it said it didn't exist. Okay. Let's see why that is the case. Let's go back and see what happened there. So if we replace that, we should... Oh, it's just e.json. Sure, that's not right. Hold on. What happened? What was it before? It was greentile.tsx, And we said replace location. Oh, should it just be 1 and not the location plus 1? Thought the syntax was... I think I have the syntax wrong. Ah, yeah, it's the position and then the length, not the position of start and position of end. So this should just be 1. Okay. Yep, there we go. Yep, okay. And then that's correct. Get rid of those breakpoints. Step through, assert, get the tile source, and it did. So that's great. Actually, was that using... It was. I should have looked at what this did. Actually, oh, it just gets the source. Image full. Oh, okay, because it gets the PNG. Okay, that's fine. That's okay. Edit file source name. That's good. Get file name, image file name. Yep, that's good too. All right, so that's looking excellent. So now we can go through the layers, and if it's a tile layer, which it is, we check to see if compression is enabled, which we don't want. That was a problem we ran into way back when we were working on this for the first time. And then we get the data, and we get the size, and the map buffer size is now set to 1024, so there's 1K of uncompressed map data, which is a lot, but obviously we would not be doing we wouldn't be doing this you know, fully uncompressed like we are right now. This is just because we're still kind of building stuff out. This looks like it is working correctly because we're getting a bunch of 2s, so that seems reasonable to me that we are reading our map data as expected. That all looks lovely. And then we get the width, which is 16. That is correct. And the height is quite a bit more. It is 64. So that's good too, right? That, I believe that is, those are the right dimensions. That's tile width and where is height? 64. Okay, great. So that's working too. That's exciting. All right, so then the next layer that we're going to process is not the tile layer, but the object. Okay, what was it? It should have been object group, but clearly it wasn't. Where is type? Oh, it is object group. Oh. I wrote if not equals 0 as opposed to either 1 or the other. Okay. So that's why that happened. Okay. So we have our objects. The object count is 2. Is that right? Yeah, that is right, because there are just the 2 spawn points in that layer. Okay, cool. So that's that, and then we get the actual object, and we say it's visible, and the X is that, and the Y is that, and then we get a GID, and then we check to see if type is defined as a nullable in case it's not there. And in this case, it is not null and is defined as spawn point. So that means we want to make it not visible anymore because it is a thing that is just there to spawn enemies on the map. So that's cool. That's very good. We have our properties. We get the property and we get the name, and the name is in this case count. And so we set the value to 3. And then we get the delay, and the delay is set to, it couldn't convert that. So what is the deal? What's the deal with the conversion? It is, it's a UN16. Okay, so that's why. UN16. Count is a UN8, and those are strings. Okay. This is actually going better than I anticipated, so that's good. Maybe we'll have the game up and running again, or the code running again, shortly here. Okay. So that's the count. That's the delay, now correctly stored. Now we have the entity, and that is a little bit. And the sprite will also be a little bit. So that is excellent. That is working as it should. And we set that, and we go through the next object. So everything is okay there now. So we have our objects in the map object list, and we're going to sort them. And we did it, and it's done, and we're done with the objects in that map. Let me just double check something. Did I do that right? No. So that's sort. That's sort. Well, I guess there shouldn't be more than one object layer, so it's probably okay. All right, that's fine. Technically, I was thinking, well, maybe we don't want to do the sort until the end when everything is legitimately done, but given that there's only going to be one object layer on the map, it doesn't matter. It'll work just fine. Free our code, our JavaScript stuff that we loaded. We have our map object count. And then if meta, so this is where we are going through the meta tiles, and I think we are mapping them accordingly to the specific map we're on, or the specific part of the map that we are loading, because we have to store the values with relative indexing. I believe that's what that is here, where we load it and then kind of do some actually looking at it here, we're loading it and storing the images. All right, never mind that. I mean, we're doing that, but not here. So, all right, so that is good though. That means that we're done with that JavaScript, that JS code. And then I believe the rest is just processing these structures that we've loaded. So if I just let the rest run, let's see, load palette. Close. Why? Load palette. Load sprite. Close file. Load. This loads the palette. Sprite. What's going on with this? Explode.sprite. Assets. This didn't get sprite positions. Okay, is this more JavaScript stuff, or what happened here? This loads the sprite file. That shouldn't have any impact. None of this should have impacted that. Let's see, is it maybe loading? It's loading explode.sprite. Oh, I wonder if it's because I added the entities property and that is messing up. It's possible that that's messing up loading the file, right? Or is that only with map objects? Explode.sprite with height, blah, blah, blah. Collision points, sprite points, palette. Yeah, that's not... Okay, that's not part of that object, so... Did something get corrupted? Like if I just do... Let me save that off for a second. If I just go to I just tell it to load that, it should open it in the editor view. Could be, oh, you know, it could be something to do with the changeover to 64-bit. Let's see. Maybe I did something naughty with the pointers. Let's see. We open that, and then we read the size of sprite. And the size of sprite... Yeah, that could be it. Because if the size of sprite... If sprite has a pointer in it that's not used, at least for the purposes of what we're doing here, and then, yeah, so, all right, so real quick, what happened? Oh, I know how to fix this, possibly. So what happened is these pointers, they doubled in size, right? Because we went from 32-bit code to 64-bit code. And so as a result, all of these pointers are now double their size. And even though we don't care about them in the file content itself, they still get written to the file. And so as a result, what happens is that when we went and read stuff out, of the file, something must have gotten messed up as a result of that change. Like the first thing is the file is probably not long enough to read that content. So let's see. So we have this reserved space, which we can sort of eat into to fix the fact that we're now trying to read more space than there actually is in the file. So this is normally 4 bytes, so that's 8. So we need 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times 4, so that's 20. We need 20 bytes offset, if I did that right. So that's now the same size as the old structure in 32-bit code land. Visual Studio is now thinking about whether or not it wants to run the code. There it goes. Is it going to actually function now? Maybe. Ah, okay. Cool. So that was a relatively straightforward fix for that. Do we have that problem with any of the other files? Metatile, no. Alright, that might have been all we needed to do. There we go. And see, now you know why I put the reserved space in there. Because you never know when you need to be able to do that kind of offsetting. Actually, I wish I could say that I legitimately thought that there was going to be some sort of problem ahead of time to account for 64 versus 32-bit specifically, but I just figured we might need the extra space for some reason, and so I decided that we were going to do that. But I'm glad I did, because that means I don't have to re-export all our sprite files in order to make this work again. But that's just a small taste of the fun stuff you have to deal with when you're converting your native 32-bit code to 64-bit. Things you don't even think about when you're writing the code if you're messing with pointers and stuff like that. That looks like it exported. Alright, so let's see what nightmarish hell we've unleashed. That opened the wrong monitor. Boop. Okay. So there's the export. That all looks relatively reasonable. I mean, it looks kind of like what we normally generate, so we'll give it a shot. Okay. Nothing complained there about missing files or anything like that. Where's the controller? All right. Well, there you go. Shooting works. Let's see if the enemies actually appear still. Should that be happening soon-ish, maybe? I thought they normally appear already. Yeah, we're past the point. Oh, those guys showed up. Did I miss the other ones because I wasn't paying attention? I was looking at the map. Let's see. No, I didn't see them. What happened with the first set of bad guys? Let's accelerate the emulator so we can... Wonder why... Second set of enemies works fine. Okay, well, I mean, I knew there would be problems, but in the grand scheme of things, this is actually not that bad. I'm thinking it's probably just another sort of offset issue from the changes we made. Maybe something that I was indexing by 1 that now is no longer indexed that way. Let's take a look at the old code and just where we're dealing with the map object and see if we can't see visually where the problem is before we start stepping into the code. So this is loading the map, so we want to get to the point where we're looking at the map objects, which is over here. Object group, get property, object above, it's an array, get the size, from 0 to object count, map object, I visible. That looks normal to me. I mean, that looks like it should. Let's go back to the code and look at where we're actually loading this stuff. Excuse me. Oh, index is 0. We've got a position of 81 and 575. 81 and 575, so that's right. And okay, so oh, I know what the problem is. Can anybody guess before I make the change? It's a really dumb problem. If you're paying attention on the stream and you wanna pop in what you think the problem is, it's pretty easy. I'll give it a moment here. We gotta do something that we're not doing. Ready? Really simple. Yep, we weren't incrementing the index for the map objects, so it just kept overwriting. We could have had 1,000 enemies, and it would have kept overwriting the same slot in there over and over and over again. All right, cool. So that is all that was. That's an easy problem to fix. So we've re-exported the data. Let's go back and grab our export junk and replace it. And let's make and that should have fixed that. So let's see. There are the enemies. Bam, bam, bam. Cool. Probably want to speed them up a little bit at some point. We got to start working on some actual enemy stuff. What's cool is, you know, the code is already in there for things like if you defeat all 3 of these enemies, or all 5, or whatever it is, the wave of enemies, it knows that you've defeated all of them in the same group, and we did that a long time ago, where we have the ability to, you know, do special things when that occurs. So that'll trigger some power-ups or something like that, but it's part of the way we're going to be building the game. You know, obviously with any game you got to worry about balancing stuff in terms of the way that these power-ups are given out and whatnot. All right, so okay, that's awesome. So I thought we were going to spend a lot more time on that than debugging that than we ended up doing. So the next part of that then is that now that we have this loading with the new library, one thing that we're not doing is we are not getting the entities and using that to generate essentially the game entities.inc file. This is a manually created file, and this should match. This should match the entities that are in here. So first problem is, of course, that we have more entities there than we have here. Let me close out these files because we don't need them anymore for now. Okay, so we have no entity, obviously, which is an automatic type that we don't need to do anything for. And then we have explode. And then we have bullet. And we have player and cloud and enemy bullet and little bit, which should have a capital L, I guess, and launch. Okay, so those are the entities that we're going to generate. And then, as simple as that, whoa, hey, as simple as Visual Studio letting me actually type things. Somehow it decided that it wanted to try and build. As simple as doing that. Now we have the entities that we just updated, which before we were totally ignoring. And so what we need to do is we need to store that information somewhere. Where is a good question. We are project file. Project file. What do we have in project file? That's file system item and project file type. So we have here are the items that can be, or is it just one item? Oh, okay, yeah, it's not a project file like in the sense of that file, it's a file for the project. So we have an array of those and a max number of file projects, project files rather. So we can do the same thing. We can say where this is just a list of strings. Do I want to cheat? How do I want to return that data? I know how I want to do it, but the issue is, do we need to allocate all right, well, this is kind of ugly that we're doing this. But this is the cleanest way to pass it as a parameter to this thing. What are you complaining about? Oh. Naming conflict. Okay. So if that's not null, then, I mean, honestly, this is... See, this is where things like object-oriented programming can get you some gains, because if you don't care about the performance of this right now, which I don't, because this is not code that's running a bazillion times a second, or even that frequently with that much data, that, you know, the time we're wasting is of consequence. Because that's the case, then this is fine. I mean, if this were in the game, this would not be fine because of a lot of reasons, but for what we're doing here, this is okay. So we're just going to push, we're literally just going to push the strings onto, I gotta extract the object. We're going to get the string value and just push it into this vector. Actually, you know what? We shouldn't use a vector. We should use a deck. It amounts to the same thing. Just decks are slightly better to use in general. So what did I do wrong here? What's the problem with this thing? Standard string of a deck, or deck of standard string. This is an entity. Is this no instance? Get value matches argument list. Oh, because it needs an actual value. The object itself, actually, because this is just an array of strings, we don't even need to do that. This is like this is like the thing before, where what we actually want to do is just get the where we just want to get the index, the element at the index, and then push it onto the deck. And then load project is going to be broken because we're not passing it the deck anymore, or at all, rather, I should say. Let's pass that by reference. And now we are. So that should stop the compiler from being unhappy. Okay. So there's that. And these are just strings that we're going to be passing into the export process. So we need to do that here. That's a const standard deck, because in C++ land, if you're not going to change the thing, you want to declare a const. I don't know that that actually ever helped with anything. I mean, it makes it explicitly clear that you shouldn't be changing it, but usually it's pretty clear when you should or shouldn't be changing it. Casey Muratori, in one of his Handmade Hero rants, was talking about constness and const correctness, and he said the same thing that I kind of feel about that, which is that constness has never actually helped me solve or avoid a bug, because you know, it's usually pretty obvious when you should or shouldn't be modifying the contents of something that's passed in by reference or otherwise. So the fact that it's const, yeah, it prevents you from doing it, but that doesn't mean there aren't ways of doing it anyway. They're just messier, and if you've ever worked with programmers before, you will know that they are exceedingly good at creating messy solutions to do what they want when the compiler tells them no. So, not sure. I mean, maybe it gives them pause, but like I said, it's never actually solved any problems for me. So I just do it out of habit from years of programming in C++ with a team where that was considered the best practice. And it just feels wrong to do it now the other way. So game entities. So we're just going to do what we're doing with the other, what we did with the other stuff. We're gonna write the file content out. So we have a text file that we close. Let me just, I'm just thinking about, I don't remember how, I think what, if the file is not 0, then, yeah, okay, if it's greater than 0, then the file got opened, okay. If entity's file is greater than or equal to 0, just want to make sure that I'm checking that. Probably want to also remove game entities.inc. Just get rid of it so that we don't have a stale version running around. It assumes that we actually, hold on a second. I don't know that we actually have anything to delete the file. Okay, to do system hooks, should be able to delete a file. But it can't, so we're going to use the native method and just have a note there of why we did that. Alright, so we've got the file open. And we will do a similar thing to what we've done with other files that we are writing. Write text line. So that's end scope there at the end. And we're gonna need a project entities project entities at, does that give us the position? Yeah, so we can use an iterator that's an integer value here. And the only reason we're going to do that is because we need the numeric value for the entity ID that we're using. Is this a case? Size, returns the number of, okay. Just double checking. Size plus I. All right. So all we're doing here is we're doing that, and then we need the buffer to be a thing that we can manipulate. So okay, so text line buffer is this thing, and then that's that. So the only thing we need to do is now do 4 spaces, and then we've got to do the obligatory no entity. All right, and then we'll use I plus 1 for the rest of them. So that's print fs text line buffer. The string name equals the index plus 1. So this is project entities at I C string I plus 1. And that writes that, and then that writes the end, and we close our text file, and I think that's it. So we'll know momentarily when we run this to see if that file shows up. And then there it is. Let's see if it looks correct. Well, there's already a difference. Let's see what it is. No entity. Bullet explode. Oh, I've got bullet in there multiple times. How did I do that? Okay, well, that's how. This is the correct one. So we'll take the first bullet out of there. I didn't see it because it was wrapped onto that first line. I should probably do this just so I don't do that same mistake again. Cool. So let's close that. Let's rerun that. And other than the indexes being different. Oh, right. Okay, so that was because we had cheated and said these entity values should match the sprite values because of the way that the map was being loaded, where even though I had specified that the entity was a little bit, it was not yet actually reading the sprite type and getting the corresponding value there into the map. Alright, so that's what we'll do next time. We'll fix the map data that's being stored out so that we ensure that the map data file has not only the entity type stored, but also the sprite type, which it's not doing right now. It's just storing the one value, and we're double storing it, assuming that they're the same, which is not correct. And then that will fix that. That shouldn't take too long, I don't think. That'll require a quick update to the code in the assembly. Let's see. So it would be update here. So we can even make a note here. Update here to read the additional byte once the export is storing it in the map data. So we'll leave ourselves a handy note for Monday. And then after that, we'll have to. I'll think about what we need to do after that's working, and what what we're going to work on. So as always, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, you can reach me on Twitter at Clearvis. You can reach me through my email, which is zelius@gmail.com. You can reach me on I was going to say Nintendo Age, but rest in peace, Nintendo Age is sadly no longer there. You can reach me on Video Game Sage on the Discord. I'm there as Zelius. As I've mentioned, I have a Patreon and a Buy Me a Coffee if you're so inclined. I'm doing this just to kind of record the progress of the game, as I've mentioned a bunch of times. I'm not expecting anybody to do that, but it's always greatly appreciated. You can pre-order the game, which will get you access to the source code early and a special edition cartridge that there will be a very limited number of those that will be made available to people who pre-order. I'm not saying it's going to be one-to-one, but you know, it'll be based on the number of people I'm seeing pre-ordering. It might be one-to-one, but I'm thinking those are going to be limited to, you know, probably low double digits, you know, maybe 20. But anyway, yeah, all that information is in the description below the video, posted on YouTube. So have a great night, have a great weekend. Thanks for those who watched live, and I will see you next time. Take care.